Jason is going to blow this out of the water.
Go, Jason. So, right when I got out of graduate school, I got hired to work in a lab. And within about 2 months of working there, it was miserable. You know, we're in a basement. We're dealing with the sort of corruptness that happens when you get funding for studies. And I'm 3 years old, and I'm like, I'm going to run my own business. Fast forward 5 years, and I'm running my own business. And I have an international following. I've written a published book. And I'm feeling like I have lived the American dream. And as part of this, I have this huge sense of ownership. Like, this is my baby. I'm running my business. And I started a 401k for myself. And I just have this real pride of ownership. And I'm very aware of where every penny comes from and where every penny goes. And as you can imagine, in that 5 years, it wasn't easy. I worked long hours. I was afraid almost every day that it wasn't going to make it. I was wondering how I'd pay the rent. And that all worked together to make me feel like I'm a business owner and like no one's going to mess with me. I was very careful about copywriting everything that I wrote. People wanted to have little pieces of the business and work with me, and I was like, nobody's taking, you know, what I worked very hard to build. And you know, so I felt really good about that. And then I got invited to go to a wedding from a college friend of mine, a fraternity brother, down in the Philadelphia area. And we're sitting around having brunch, and you know, like the morning before the wedding, a bunch of us. And one of my buddies is like, "Hey, Goot, remember those like massive seaweed grilling festivals we'd have that summer we lived in Avalon?" And sort of wink at me, like, "Remember those?" And that wink was important because what happened that summer we lived in Avalon is I worked at a fish market, Avalon Seafood, for this guy, Russ, who built Avalon Seafood from the ground up. And what would happen is my buddies would come in and say, "Give me 2 pounds of swordfish, give me 2 pounds of shrimp, give me 3 pounds of scallops." And we'd write up the little tickets, and we'd check people out. And when my buddies came in, you know, the bill should have been $69, and I made it $19. Because in my mind, you should have seen the amount of people that came in. You know, imagine a shore seafood market in a shore town, in a wealthy shore town. You know, Russ is rolling in the dough. But I did this probably a dozen times. My buddies came in, and they got $75 worth of seafood for $19. And that morning, you know, sitting around hearing this, it's just like this record scratched in my mind of what it means to really run a business. And so my story doesn't have a lot of like laughter and happy endings, but it just really brought me to that truth. And so when I walk into a Guthries, or I walk into any place in Portland, or you know, a contractor comes and does something on my home, like, I'm cognizant that everyone that's running their own business is aware of every penny. And you know, I probably stole $200 or $300 from Russ that summer, and I didn't have a chance to say sorry. I didn't have a chance to pay him back because I had heard in that, you know, 10 years or so that Russ had passed away. So it just, you know, gives me real pause of what impeccable honesty is and impeccable truth. And you can't make assumptions that people that are doing well have money to give away or money to burn. And so, you know, that's my story. It's a story of seeing my own self and seeing that, you know, I was naive and I made mistakes, and my own life experience as it played out showed me profoundly what Russ was going through when I was a sort of a punk 20-year-old living at the shore, not knowing what it meant to run a business. And that's my story.